Have you ever seen this happen? You're watching a user on your app, they pick something from a dropdown, a new field pops up, looks good, then they hit refresh, and while their choice is saved, the field is just gone. The system saved the data, but it completely forgot what the user was doing. Today, we're digging into exactly that. This isn't just a bug, it's something much deeper.
Right. So this isn't your typical crash the app kind of bug. We call this an invisible failure. It's the sneaky kind of problem that doesn't throw an error, but just quietly eats away at the user's trust. It makes the whole application feel flaky and unpredictable, because when the UI can't remember what it was just doing, your users start to wonder what else it's forgetting.
So let's get specific. Here's the play-by-play. The user selects a product type from a dropdown. The app is supposed to then show a tenant identifier field. And hey, on the first try, it works perfectly. But the second the user refreshes the page, the whole thing falls apart. The dropdown selection? Still there, saved perfectly in the database. But the field that's supposed to be visible? Poof, vanished. The system remembered the data, but it had total amnesia about the UI.
And this is the moment you have to draw a line in the sand. This was not just another ticket for the backlog. This was a deep, fundamental flaw in the architecture. You can't just slap a patch on this, because the problem will just keep popping up somewhere else, in a new and even more frustrating way. So that gets us to the big question, why? Why was this happening? Well, it all came down to a broken mental model. The whole problem stemmed from where the team was putting the logic. All of it was stuffed inside temporary rendering scripts. Yeah, the root cause was deceptively simple. All of that critical UI logic, if the user picks this, then you need to show that, it was all living inside scripts that only ran for a split second when the page first painted. They were totally temporary. Which leads to the one question every single software engineer needs to ask when they see this pattern. What happens on a page refresh? What happens when that whole interface gets torn down and rebuilt from scratch? And here's the brutal answer. The UI gets rebuilt, sure. The dropdown gets its saved value. But the logic? The code that was supposed to run when that value was first picked, it never gets triggered again. It's a one-and-done deal. And this is the heart of it all. The system has absolutely no memory of its own state.
So how do you fix a system with amnesia? Well, you give it a permanent memory. You have to build a new architecture that's based on one simple, powerful idea, separating what to show from how to show it. Let's see how they did it.
This right here is the game changer. The architecture was split into two separate jobs. On one side, you've got the presentation model, the PM. Just think of this as the brain. It holds the logical state. It's the single source of truth that makes all the decisions, like, hey, should the tenant identifier field be visible right now? Then, on the other side, you have the physical renderer, or PR. This is the hands. It doesn't think, it just does what the brain tells it to. It reads the state from the PM and builds the UI. It just obeys. Now, with this new setup, the whole flow is rock solid. Check it out. 1. The user picks an option. 2. That change is immediately synced to the server. No waiting. 3. The presentation model, the brain, gets that new value and updates its own logical state. It decides, okay, the tenant identifier now needs to be visible. And finally, 4. The physical renderer sees that the PM state has changed, and it just rebuilds the UI to match it. Every time, no guesswork. And they didn't just stop at the big picture. They nailed the details too. To make sure the layout was clean, the code hides the entire container for the field, not just the little input box. And they used scoped CSS to make sure these styling rules couldn't leak out and accidentally mess up some other part of the application. It's just a clean, bulletproof solution. Okay, so if you have ever fought a UI that forgets everything, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. This channel is all about fixing these invisible failures. So what was the real impact here? Well, this wasn't just about fixing one bug. This was about establishing a new resilient principle for how to build things. And the results? It was night and day. Before this architectural fix, these kinds of UI state failures were happening all the time. It was a constant source of frustration. Afterwards, these bugs dropped to basically zero. The entire system just became stable and predictable. So let's just recap the win. The UI no longer breaks on a refresh. That core problem? Solved. And because the logic is now persistent, this consistent behavior shows up everywhere across the app, not just on this one form. And maybe most importantly, that user trust that was slowly bleeding out, it was restored. The system finally had a memory. And it really all boils down to this one powerful idea. If you take one thing away from this, let it be this. The user interface is temporary. It gets torn down and rebuilt all the time. Your logic, your state, your business rules, that stuff has to persist.
So the next time you see a glitch that looks like it's just a visual problem, I want you to remember this. UI bugs are almost never just visual problems. They are symptoms of a deeper architectural disease. When you fix the architecture, you don't just fix one bug. You kill an entire class of future bugs before they're even born. That's the difference between just coding and real engineering. Subscribe करो. अगर आप सिर्फ code नहीं, engineering सीखना चाहते